Jesus was never crucified, and it's one of the biggest things that the Quran and the Christian Bible have in common.
No, they don't.
Yes, you heard that correctly. The Christian Bible claims that Jesus was never crucified.
No, it doesn't.
And in fact, it is impossible for this to happen. And before you guys start crying, I have the Bible verses pulled up, so just give me 1 minute.
He's going to proof text Psalm 91, which is not a messianic psalm, and it's actually placed in book 3 of the Psalms, which is professing to exiled Israel where they can find shelter because they're now in exile.
And at the end of the video, I got a surprise for you. There's something with the story about the crown of thorns that's really, really interesting. Now, Psalms 91:10 through 16 says, "No harm will overtake you, no disaster will come near your tent."
Before you ever quote a psalm, you need to understand the shape of the book, and you need to know which book of the Psalms you're in. So by the end of book 3 in the Psalms, we're at Psalm 89. And Psalm 89 is a lament at the destruction of Jerusalem. They're lamenting that David has been cast off, the walls of Jerusalem have been destroyed, Israel has come under judgment. Psalm 90 then is Moses speaking up, which is a strange place in a 150 Psalm book to have Moses appear for the life of Israel. Moses is from the very near beginning of Israel's history, and yet we find him almost towards the end. And what's happening is the psalmist is retelling the story of Israel. Israel, by Psalm 89, has gone into exile, which means they're back in slavery. And so the voice of Moses, the only psalm he has in the book, shows up in Psalm 90 to say God is going to lead another exodus. And so Psalm 90 is speaking to exiled Israel, saying that God is still a refuge for you, even though you are enslaved by Babylon.
"For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all ways. They will lift you up in their hands so that they will not strike your foot against stone." Now you guys can pause. I'm not going to read this whole verse for you. But this last word right here, salvation, you know what the Hebrew version of salvation is? The Hebrew version of salvation is Yeshua. Now, according to Christianity, Yeshua is the correct name for Jesus, not Jesus. Jesus has never been his name at any point in time. There was no J even in the Hebrew language, so I don't even know where that came from.
This has no relevance to how we understand whether or not Christ was crucified. Yes, the Hebrew word for salvation is Yeshua, but there's nothing in this psalm pointing us to the Messiah, suggesting that he will never be crucified. In fact, if you read the New Testament, it tells you multiple times that Jesus was crucified. He is the greater fulfillment of Psalm 22. He is the fulfillment of Isaiah 53. Jesus was, in terms of scripture, definitely crucified, and this sort of argumentation is absolute nonsense and a total proof texting and misuse of scripture. Most importantly, this psalm is actually the psalm that Satan uses in this exact way to tempt Jesus in the book of Matthew. Ironic.